I think that you and I always set the tone right about music and rock and roll. I think rock and roll is like breathing. You know, you have to take in everything. All parts of the Tetris make the whole. This particular album that we're discussing today came about at the time of an ARIA award, which I hadn't been to an ARIA Awards in maybe 15 years. I hadn't really been invited, really. I had the head of Sony Records, who you know is Dennis Hanlon. He walked up to me in a crowd and he just said, you know, why don't you come back home and let's just make a record, just get you back in the Sony community. But then you cut to making the album in the time of COVID, and the whole thing made a different type of context. And it's made the whole album mean something entirely different for me.
Well, you've really made the COVID thing, haven't you, with the song Hold On, which is one of your originals.
Yeah. Well, to Dennis's credit, you know, he loved that we did sign off before COVID on the set list. It didn't have originals at the time, but because COVID had kicked me in the guts, I kind of responded with writing Hold On, and that was something that was very... It was the context of the truth for me within the recording and all of the restrictions, and trying to maintain some optimism when I couldn't work out what was happening. I didn't actually even know if at the end of all of this it would be my retirement. Like, what is this? Am I out of music now? Is this the end of how we see ourselves within this music industry? Like, it's been something definitely to have to overcome.
Absolutely. The lyric, the world is changing so fast and I feel that I'm changing so much too, really does sum up, I guess, how a lot of people are feeling in 2020.
And there were things, weren't there? I mean, Paul, you understand more than others that the things we take for granted that we think that may always be there, and that the things that we've always sort of had as a structure around ourselves to kind of push away from and have that wonderful liberation, knowing that we have the security of these things we've always known to be true and safe and solid, to have nothing to kick away from. I didn't know whether I was kicking off the bottom of the ocean floor or heading down towards the bottom, you know, like I feel like the last 4 months I've just simply been tumbling in a you know, just in that kind of turmoil, like in the inside of a wave. It's been really chaotic. However, one of the things I did discover out of it, though, is that there are simple truths about people. Melbourne, Victoria, we're so lovely, actually, and people have tried to do the very, very best and have been working really well to pull off what is a miracle, really, to have accomplished the kind of statistics that they've done, I think, in the community there, and kind of held it together. And I guess my song was to them, really, more than anyone else dealing with the problem, like just to the people themselves, to say, hang in there, hold on, because if you can just hang in, hold on, there will be this time again where you will then be able to be free to make up your own mind about where you want to be. Physically, you can leave, you can go and see your family, you can be with your friends, you can have a life, you know.
And I guess the other song that shares that sentiment is the other new song on the album, and it's a Rick Price song, Sweet Inspiration, which...
actually, it's not a Rick Price song. I wrote it, but Rick gave me the title. Actually, that's not entirely true. Rick gave me the chord structure for the chorus as well. So the two of us co-wrote it. But because I was getting really frustrated, and this is nothing against Rick. Rick and I were going to actually produce the album in Nashville together. This was before COVID. And that would have been like unreal, really, because he's a lovely friend. We would have done some beautiful writing together. But when things got a bit tough in COVID Victoria, I got his title, which I really, really loved. I think Robert came up with it as well together. There was the three of us. and then he gave me 3 chords, and I said, Rick, I don't feel in a mood to collaborate. I want to go home to my space within and finish this song and try to get a dialogue for what I'm feeling right now. So I thank him very much for the inspiration it was, but the song is all mine because I had this urge to tell people that we need to come back to a feeling of being communal and at church with ourselves and try to find space and peace within that space.
The album opens with, I guess, a fairly lesser-known Leonard Cohen song, If It Be Your Will, which I'm always fascinated by your curation of songs. And, as you've alluded, you might have, had a little help with the selection, but why that particular song?
I chose that song because within it seemed to have the kind of the code to release me and make it okay for me to sing. I stopped singing after Kate and Friends because the second wave of lockdown just kind of winded me. And, we were committed to making a record, but I didn't want to sing. So I was having a bit of an emotional tantrum. And I was listening to the words of this song, and he said, if it be your will to let me sing again, and then within there as well, if it be your will to make us well again. And so I used it as a bit of a self-help and took from the tonic of Leonard Cohen. I took a little sip and he gave me some Dutch courage, and then I chose that song and it was unfortunate, well, fortunately in a good way, but because we only had 2 days to record the whole album, I had to sing the album all day, every day for 10 hours each day. And that was the last session of the second day. And I was spent, but my heart was needed to say so much that you can hear it in the song. It's just like, I'm really reaching for it.
What about Carole King's So Far Away? Another beautiful song, one of my favourite Carole King songs.
Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? And then that was another thing I thought was beautiful. COVID has made communication mediums so much more significant. I mean, the way we talk to each other now, we have to learn how to be intimate across quite a great digital divide. We need to sort of be able to find each other's space. I need to be able to find you in your beautiful space there with all your beautiful music, and you're in my rather empty and dry. I've got my easel, my guitars and paints, and my keyboard over here, and they're like, that's like a little turtle. I've brought my whole world with me right now. Nothing really like home, but So Far Away. Back then, if you put it in the context of the 60s, and she's saying that even still, when we had contact with each other, when we had access to each other, we were still remote from each other. Doesn't anybody stay in one place anymore? She's sort of saying, don't you check in with your mum? Do you not say good day to your family? How long's it been since you went to the local pub with your mates and had just a single schooner and did nothing but just sit there on one hot summer's afternoon and just shoot the shit? I mean, when have we given ourselves time to just do that? So it was wonderful to go back into that place in this context of COVID and sing it, feeling all those feelings all over again. And I Honestly Love You was in Peter Allen's context, which I've loved Olivia Newton-John's version as well all my life. I've loved her version. I love her country music. I love that style. But when Peter Allen sings, he brings a certain kind of life and a truth to his lyrics that I just don't think anyone else's versions quite have the same purity. There's a different, probably too because of the sort of the underlying sub-stories to his stories. They make it all the more important. And then, of course, in COVID again, it's like love in the time of COVID, this album. It suddenly means so many different things.
On that Peter Allen, Sinatra, you also mentioned Whitney Houston was on that bill, and you've covered I Will Always Love You, which is actually a Dolly Parton song.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And in fact, I've probably done it more true to Dolly because I love Dolly so much. I love the way Dolly, when apparently the story goes with that song, Elvis wanted to do that song. Did you ever hear about that story? And she said, oh, okay. She said, but she didn't want to give over the copyright for it. And he said, oh, no, we take all or nothing. She's like, well, then, sorry. And I'm sure Elvis's community was like, this is Elvis you're talking about here. This is Elvis. But the song, again, there's something in the same way that I was just talking about, with other songwriters, when the author themselves owns a song like that. Yes, Whitney Houston smashed it. There's no doubt she made it an entirely different piece. But when you hear Dolly, mate, unreal. Dolly Parton, she is just the queen of heart.
You've got an Amy Grant song on here. I rarely hear Amy Grant be covered, If These Walls Could Speak. Tell me about that.
When the Barnes family invited me, we went and did that whole tour with him, so Amy Grant, you've got Amy Grant as it's so funny because everyone knows, yeah. Well, anyway, David Campbell and I were on tour doing this song, and we, I think there was something about it that gave me the sense of home, and home is never more important for people than right now. The feeling of there are wars within homes at the moment. Definitely people who are locked in rather than locked down, which is quite terrible. But then there are also there's a lot of nostalgia for homes and families, like families that can't be together. Like I truly missed, and I was thinking a lot about my family home in all the time that we've been in lockdown. I would have loved to have been back with my whole family together. The messy, crowded, noisy, love that time of my life. Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple of interesting tracks on this album from, I guess, a more modern perspective, and both out of the UK. Elbow with Mirrorball, and also Paul Weller's You Do Something to Me. Again, very, very tasty choices.
Well, I listen a lot to people like Mirrorball, and I love that singer. I just think he's just amazing. And Paul Weller I've been a fan of for years as well. I was actually on the Kate and Friends series that I was shooting in the first lockdown. It was a request someone had asked me. I never sung it before, and I just found probably because we did it in the first lockdown, the connection that I made with the song, and Paul, I've just loved it. I've never heard the song. I don't know. I just found that there was this incredible scope of emotion and also love, like, wow. And then Mirrorball, well, I don't know anyone that can make, certainly from the mouth of a man, make something so tender and so truthful and so intimate. He was like, he puts his whole soul and heart to bear on that track. So that's what I was honouring. I was honouring that kind of truth and perhaps that authenticity in there as well. Love that song so much.
Had we not had COVID this year, you would have been on the Good Times tour. You would have been on the tour with Leo Sayer. You've covered When I Need You on here. Was that always planned as were you going to do that as a duet or something on the tour?
I would never have invited myself into that space to do a duet on his song. Like, are you kidding? It's like sort of, so, he's the master of his own music. I would never assume that he would let me in on that. But I've been on tour with him before singing that song, and I've been at weddings when I've watched him sing that song, and I just cry all the time. I just cry. It must take me back to a time in my youth, and certainly reminds me of people I loved. I think it might have been even my first slow dance, like at a teenage kind of blue light disco.
Let's get on to this topic of Anne Murray, because you are a lot younger than me. So the fact that you actually...
I don't think so. I think we're about the same age.
Well, unless you've aged 10 years, you might want to chop your age back down to where you were.
I don't reckon. I don't think so. Like, unless you perennially look like a 13-year-old boy, which is what you do.
I perennially act like a 13-year-old boy.
Anne Murray, I love the song and I didn't care who didn't. Like, there were a lot of critics and stuff who found it too soppy or too loving. But then I'm a girl who loves First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, and I love love. I love there was something about, I did it one time with Paul Grabowski when we were out on the road, and it was a request at the end of we'd done all of this beautiful track listing from Trist, which is kind of everywhere. We go A Song for You, Wild as the Wind. We go towards, the French series. We did all of Jacques Brel and Piaf, and then we're going to and then at the very end we put it out to the audience, and we were like, well, what would you like us to sing? What's your request? And we'd always get a Barbra Streisand song or Anne Murray. And so we'd end up singing Memories and we'd sing You Needed Me. Yeah. And it just, so I thought, well, the world is telling me they want to hear it. And so I'm going to sing it.
The Long and Winding Road, the Beatles, ends the album. I'm
a Beatles fanatic, just as like any good girl from the 60s is, born in the 60s. Beatles, and it was kind of like, people are sort of like, are you a Beatles person or are you a Rolling Stone person? And I'm a Beatles person. Are you a Bowie person or are you a Peter Frampton person? Like you get like these people who...
But Sherbet or Skyhooks?
I have to say Skyhooks, because although I love Daryl very much, I've only actually got to meet Daryl and connect with Daryl as an adult. I wasn't quite old enough to be one of his, fangirls. And though I love How's That and all that, I don't know, I sort of thought there was something kind of theatrical and fantastic about Skyhooks that was irresistible to me. So anyway, yeah. So you go back and forth across that. But The Long and Winding Road is a song that seems to have the gravitas of time. It's like a person standing in a time of their life looking back and sort of reclaiming a kind of connection that you'd made once with someone. This is to my taste. This is how I feel it. And giving it this beautiful, it's like a hymn, isn't it? It's like the hymn of her or the hymn of him, if you will.
It's a very interesting song to end the album with, because in the world of the Beatles, The Long and Winding Road was the very last single by the Beatles, and then they broke up.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been breaking up from the world right now, haven't we? We've been breaking up from people, breaking up from fixed ideas about how we thought we'd be, where we thought we'd be. I mean, I've had to examine a lot of loss in leaving a certain type of career and becoming a different type of career. I'm in the middle of mourning a loss of my home, really, in a projecting towards a new kind of home, be it permanent, temporary. I don't even really know yet. So we're sort of breaking up with the world and starting again. But I just think that song reminds us to stay human about it and grieve and love and be passionate. And I have to say thank you actually at this point, because in this right now, the way I could afford to even do this, because it's a very costly undertaking, this whole thing here, where you have to come into a policed quarantine. It's like, it's thousands of dollars. So about a month ago, my family had already left. They were already gone because my husband came to work here in Sydney because he lives here as well. And so I started working on an art project where I just started selling paintings that I'd been doing on guitars, and all the fans have rallied together, which is amazing. And they commissioned these, and they've actually made it possible by buying my unsung songs. That's what I call these guitars. And it's actually been the way that I could afford to even come into this next part of my existence.
Is that what the guitar in the background all wrapped up is?
That's about one I'm ready to start, and I've done 6 others while I've been in here. And actually, I just made a template for a girlfriend's album cover here. This is just a little glimpse.
Oh wow! So who will be using that as their album cover?
Well, I can't tell you yet. You'll have to go and see if you can rewind and
see who it could be.
But this is the way artists rally together and their people. I mean, you know, the family of friends and fans that over 40 years have found a place for me in their houses and in their homes and in their hearts. We're keeping each other alive at the moment. It's really beautiful.
Absolutely. Kate, it's been great to talk to you. Loving this new album. People will be able to get it and hear it in full in February 2021. Lucky me, I got to hear it early, but people can get online and they can pre-order it now anyway.
You know what they can do? This will come, they can pre-order and they'll get special gifts actually, because I've got these giveaways of David Bromley's painting. We've got these limited edition posters being created that I'll be signing. So I'm going to release those with every pre-order from JB Hi-Fi. So if anyone wants to get on board now, and then for Christmas as well, they can pre-order it. We delivered just shortly after Christmas.